welcome to another Age of Sigmar battle report. The Stormcast Eternals, yet again, taking on the foul, hideous, bloated, festering forces of Nurgle. 3 places of power. The leaders of 2 rival armies have learned the location of 3 places of great power. If a mighty warrior stands upon such a location, they can leech some of the energy and siphon it away. The longer they can remain upon the place of power, the more energy they can steal. Well, there you have it. The 3 places of power. Stormcast Eternals versus Nurgle. You can immediately see the 3 places of power along the centre of the battlefield there, and several terrain pieces, each one with a different effect, which I will go over right now. So, there are the places of power. We have a sinister house. We have the sinister Ophidian archway. We have an inspiring hill right in front of the Stormcast. We have an arcane forest in front of the Nurgle forces. We have another sinister hill. And we have the damned Dragon Fate dais. So, on the side of the Stormcast, we have a Lord Celestant mounted on a Dracoth. He is supported there by 5 Liberators and 3 Longstrike Vanguard Raptors. Next to them there is the Knight Heraldor and also 5 more Liberators. Then we have the Lord Relictor, and behind him we have the Celesta Ballista. So, in the Stormcast army, there are a few traits in use here. So, the Lord Celestant on Dracoth, when he suffers a multi-wound attack on the roll of a 5+, he'll only suffer 1 wound. So you can see the Stormcast Eternal forces are neglecting the left-hand side of the battlefield and one of the places of power, which is looking a little bit bare. So, on the forces of Nurgle, we have 10 Plague Bearers next to a wizard. Then we have 3 Chaos Spawn, very grotesque looking indeed. Behind them we have a Plague Claw Catapult and 5 Blight Kings. We then have a Plague Lord and another 5 Blight Kings. So, as you can see, the Nurgle have actually got forces committed on this side of the table where there are no Stormcast units, and they aren't the fastest. They are next to a Realm Gate, but the wizard is not over here. So, they are going to have to be focusing their efforts on the place of power directly in front of them. The forces of Nurgle are going to be going first, as you can see by this. They choose to go first because the Stormcast do have some shooting abilities, and there are some prosecutors as well in the Celestial Realm, which I neglected to mention until just now. Turn 1 for the Nurgle forces. Everything moves forward as fast as it can. The Chaos Spawn have made some decent headway. You'll notice immediately that the Nurgle forces only have 2 heroes, which for this scenario could be a bit risky. We shall see. And there are the Blight Kings and the Plague Lord moving up there. So that's how it's going to look at the end of that turn. Not in range to do much. The Plague Claw Catapult doesn't hit anything in this turn. And now it's going to be time for the Stormcast Eternals, who do have shooting ability. So my strategy here is going to be immediately get the Lord Celestant on Dracoth to run up to the first place of power and claim it immediately in the first turn, giving me the advantage, and then try and shoot down the enemy heroes. That seems to be the sound plan here. So the Vanguard Raptors open fire and they put a wound onto the enemy wizard, who is one of the 2 heroes, and you can see there that the Liberators have moved up there next to the Knight Heraldor, who can potentially cause some devastating vibrations in the terrain, and nearby enemy units can start suffering wounds, so he wants to get in range to use that. The Ballista, this may be the first time it's ever hit anything. Even with a nearby enemy unit, it successfully hits the enemy leader, who has taken some damage there. So both of the Nurgle heroes are down in wounds at this stage, which is not a good idea. They're already behind in victory points. The Stormcast have the advantage in number of heroes, but if it comes up to a slugfest, the Nurgle forces will win. But the Blight Kings are both over on the left, and the Lord Celestant on Dracoth was deployed last, and he was intentionally put as far away from the Blight Kings as possible because they're the only thing that I really see as a big threat to him in this game. So if he's able to just hold that place of power on the right for the whole game, or for a few turns, I think that should be enough for the Stormcast Eternals to prevail. Nurgle are going to get the choice of going first or second in the next battle round, though, and they're going to go first because they don't want to get shot to bits, and the evil sorcerer puts a wound onto the Knight Heralder. And here you can see that the Plague Lord, who ran to try and get as close as possible, could not quite make it to the place of power. Look at that, with the handy-dandy 3-inch combat gauge there. He was slightly out of range, so unfortunately he's not going to start building up points yet. Over here, the Chaos Spawn are moving perilously close to the Stormcast lines, and the Plague Bearers just moving up as fast as they can. One of them was lost to shooting, it appears, and the Sorcerer is moving behind them. You can see that the Chaos Spawn make it into the Liberators, so they're going to probably crush some golden shiny face in a moment, and they do in fact kill 1.5 Liberators. But the Knight Heraldor has moved in there to help out a bit, so turning the odds slightly in the Stormcast's favour, but Chaos Spawn are not to be sniffed at, quite literally. So the next turn, and this is for the Stormcast Eternals, so the Vanguard Raptors, what do? Well, they kill the Sorcerer. So it's not looking good for the Nurgle forces. They've only got one hero left. The Lord Celestant on Dracoth uses his fiery storm breath to bring down 2 Plague Bearers, and then the Prosecutors drop down from the Celestial Realm, and they put some damage onto the Plague Claw catapult before it's even got to doing much. So that's how the battlefield is looking. So the Lord Celestant has already built up 2 points worth on the right-hand place of power. Of course, it's worth more the longer the hero is sitting on it. So unless the Nurgle forces can get to him pretty soon, he's going to build up an unassailable lead. The Liberators versus the Plague Bearers is going to go rolling on. They're not the ultimate killer units of either side. The Chaos Spawn take down a couple more Liberators, and then a Plague Bearer goes down. A Chaos Spawn goes down from one of the Liberators, or the Knight Heraldor there with his mighty trumpet. And there's how it's looking. Looking very healthy for the Stormcast at the moment. The Nurgle have kind of got hard-hitting, powerful units stuck away from where they need to be at the moment. And you can see there the points built up by the Lord Celestant. So the Nurgle are going to go first again in battle round number 3. And you can see that the Blight Kings are moving up, trying to get as close as they can to try and affect the game before it's too late. And there the Plague Lord finally sits on an objective, the place of power. He's going to start siphoning off that magical energy with the other Blight Kings for support. They're staying next to him, so he'll be harder to hit with shooting, and he's also got a -1 to hit from shooting ability on him as well. So it's not going to be that easy to shoot him down. So the Chaos Spawn are continuing their battle with the Liberators and the Knight Heraldor, but the Plague Bearers are being made short work of here by the Liberators. These were the Plague Bearers that were screening the Sorcerer, who is long dead. They do take a Liberator down though. And this, not much is going on here, not many wounds being dealt back and forth, but the Blight Kings are lurking just at the top of the screen there, so they're going to be coming in and mopping this up if it goes on much longer. So there's a victory point for Nurgle finally, from that place of power there, over on the left. And there we go, so they've got it back to 1-3. So it's not over. Turn 3 for the Stormcast. And the Knight Heraldor decides to break away from the Chaos Spawn and just move and hit that place of power up there in the middle before the Blight Kings come in and kill him. So he's got 1 victory point to his name at least. And the Lord Relictor, who ran away after this, but he did actually put a mortal wound onto the Plague Lord before he moved away. The Lord Celestant is just sitting there building up huge amounts of points still, staying within 3 inches of that place of power, and the Prosecutors are moving towards the final remaining enemy hero, because if the Stormcast can kill him, it's going to be game over at this point. So the Ballista and the Long Strikes do actually manage to take down the Plague Lord, despite the fact that he was much more difficult to hit than usual, they still managed to do it, and they killed him. The prosecutors then put some more damage onto the Plague Claw Catapult, but not enough to kill it. Another Plague Bearer goes down, but it looks like they're going to survive the game. The Chaos Spawn still munching through Stormcast. And the other one actually runs away as a result of Battle Shock. Look at that, off he goes on a 6. So they're so terrified, even though they've already won the battle now. And there we go, that's how it's going to look at the end. So the Knight Heraldor is going to be picking up a point there. The Lord Celestin picking up 3 points because he's been on there for so long. And as a result of that, the Stormcast are now on 7 points, the Nurgle on 1, and they've got no heroes left alive. They were all shot down, so they're not going to be able to pick up any more points for the rest of the game, which means it's all over. Stormcast 7, Nurgle 1. So, what have we learned here? Well, we learned that you need more heroes in a list for when the 3 places of power scenario comes up. And also, I think the Blight Kings over on the left didn't get into the game at all. They probably could have been deployed more centrally, or if they were going to deploy over there on the left, they needed a wizard over there to activate the Realm Gate for them to pass through if they wanted to head over to the other Realm Gate. But really, because the Lord Celestin on Dracoth was going to be deployed last, they needed to be in a position where they could threaten the entire battlefield. So perhaps having one unit of Blight Kings kind of on that hill, or near that hill on the Nurgle side, and the other one between the forest and the Dragonfate dais would have meant that they had the opportunity to strike at all 3 of the places of power wherever the Lord Celestin decided to land. So putting them both on the left meant that he was never really threatened during the game, and he was able to just rack up points sitting on that point there on the left, and it was not a very long game at all. Stormcast Eternals shooting, the units that had previously not done very well for me, the Ballista and the Vanguard Raptors, actually did amazingly well and managed to gun down the heroes quite easily, in fact. So, very good for the Stormcast, not so good for the forces of Nurgle. The Chaos Spawn did a good job, they were the only things that performed, really. And, all in all, very good day for the Stormcast Eternals. Less said about the way it went for Chaos, the better. But if you want to put some tactical tips for the forces of Nurgle into the comments, then feel free. Any tactical tips, even for the Stormcast, drop them in. There's definitely a few synergistic choices that I didn't make for this list, just to try out a few different combos. I know taking, for example, Etherwings with the Vanguard Raptors is something that might be in the future, because there are some bonuses to that. There are bonuses attached to other units as well that weren't necessarily taken in this army. But it was just an interesting little mix, and I always like to have, because I've got such a wide variety of heroes to choose from in my Stormcast Eternal army, I like to always take at least 3, even at a small 1,000 point game like this. They're not that expensive, and it still allows you to take some harder hitting units. In this army, if this list came down to just a slugfest against the forces of Nurgle, it would get annihilated, I think, with only really the 2 units of Liberators who are doing that much fighting, and the Lord Celestin, but I wouldn't expect them to stand up to 2 units of Blight Kings and the Chaos Spawn. But in most scenarios, you don't necessarily have to stand up to everything on the enemy's army if you just play for the objectives and make sure you're targeting enemy units that can score objectives in the scenarios where there are restrictions on that. So, hope you enjoyed this brief game, this brief battle report, and I hope it inspires you to check out the links in the description, the various social media shenanigans going on down there, and of course send me all your money because you want me to make more battle reports, and as we all know, it costs untold thousands to take pictures of a game as it's going on, and then untold minutes to sit there and talk about those pictures. So, all that remains to be said is, good night out there, whatever you are.